Welcome back, everybody. Thanks for sticking with us. We're going into our final set of the day, and it should be an interesting one because Armada is going up against Spacestation Gold. Armada's been the team to beat. They've looked nearly untouchable throughout the first half of this spring season, but Spacestation Gold has a different member today. No Chapo in the mid lane. It's going to be Amuel instead.
It will be Amuel representing Chapo, having filled in for that United set. It's going to be the reason why he won't be able to represent Spacestation Gold here today. But the team, I think Spacestation is just trying to find, I think, even footing, if anything, right now.
Exactly. Spacestation kind of floundering. They've only found one individual game victory, haven't found a set victory quite yet, and it might be a little ambitious to expect it to be against Armada as well, because Armada, I mean, you know all the players. It's Baskin, it's Scream, it's Meerkat, it's Gino, and Snoopy. This is a star-studded roster through and through.
And what's crazier to think is that you could have probably just stopped at the first two names you mentioned, Baskin and Scream, because that has largely been the heart and soul of this Armada roster. And it's not to say that, Snoopy, Gino, and Meerkat aren't doing anything. It's just that they don't have to do anything in a large portion of these Armada matches. It really is just being Baskin and Scream that much better than everybody else.
Yeah, Scream in particular has looked just unstoppable as of late. I mean, this is kind of what you expect from a dude who really dominated the SPL for a long period of time, was one of the best junglers in the entire world, not just in the region, and then to move down to the minor league, you expect him to continue that sort of trend. But on the other side for Spacestation Gold, that's kind of okay for them because their best player is in the jungle, in Mask. This is the guy that you expect. If Spacestation Gold is going to start getting off the ground, it's going to be Mask leading the charge.
And I think that that's something that Spacestation Gold have certainly struggled with, because all these weeks that it's been Mask and Chapo, well, the meta hasn't really shifted all that much from Season 5. We are still largely in a jungler mid-driven meta, and it really just feels like Spacestation Gold's mid and jungle don't have that same level of synergy that we've seen with so many of these other teams so far.
Exactly. So maybe the switch up to Amuel will mitigate a little bit of that. I think that isn't the only problems that Spacestation Gold have had. I think that the duo lane has struggled at times. Oswald has looked a little bit uncomfortable at times. So has Matty Pocket. Uzi's had some tough games. You don't have a record like this without having everybody be contributing to the problems, but you can also see some bright flashes from all of those different members of maybe Spacestation Gold can start to bring it back a bit.
And I think it's really just going to come down to how well can Spacestation Gold kind of clean up around the edges, because a lot of times it's not even necessarily that their team fight is awful by any means. They actually have some pretty strong team fighting moments in a lot of their past sets. It's just what to do after the fact that this team really seems to struggle with. At times, you can even visibly see them on the map being torn between which way to go, which leads me to believe that the communications problem is definitely still there.
It needs a unifying voice here for Spacestation Gold. Well, let's see what they've got in picks and bans in game number 1. Armada, definitely the heavy favorites coming in, but this is kind of the first time that we're seeing a new meta develop around picks and bans. Some of the more recent balance changes have come in, and so now it's less Freya focused and a little bit more, King Arthur is still there, but there seems to be some counter pick available to him now. Merlin and Jormungandr are available. This feels like a whole new set of picks and bans have started to happen in the competitive scene.
I think that Spacestation Gold are also still pretty exclusive to trying to find comfort picks for their duo lane, and I know that we've seen a lot of like Bacchus and Ardio for Matty Pocket. Those definitely seem to be picks that he's a lot more comfortable on, and they also offer pressure, which I think bodes pretty well for Oswald, because Oswald being a little bit newer to competitive play, even though he's had some time now to get a little bit more familiar with things. I mean, you're going up against Snoopy and Gino. You probably want early game aggression, because that's all that Armada's been running for like 5-ish weeks now.
And those are the two bans that Spacestation Gold go with, Naja and Fenrir. Despite being assassins, I think those are really focused at Gino, who loves to play those aggressive assassin supports like Naja and like Fenrir. Could see an Achilles for him still. I think that's the potential option for him. But Spacestation Gold end up taking away that Freya. This is a pick that Meerkat's very, very comfortable with. Snoopy can play it. He's been playing Smite since day 1, basically. So this is really to take it away from Armada more than anything else in my mind.
Xbalanque is still on the table, though, so that could be the response right away from Armada if they're looking to have a little bit more team fighting assets. But instead, King Arthur.
Wait a minute.
Bringing the sustain.
Wait a minute. Hold on. They still have Baskin, right?
Yes.
And King Arthur still does King Arthur stuff, right?
To be completely fair, though, King Arthur does King Arthur stuff, right? But what does Baskin love to play? Things that aren't King Arthur.
Yeah, but that's because he didn't know what King Arthur did until like 3 days ago.
Yeah, but what's to say that Baskin hasn't figured out now? I don't think that Baskin likes playing King Arthur. Personally, I really don't think he cares about
He
playing
told
King
me
Arthur.
explicitly that I was allowed to say that he didn't know what King Arthur did until like a couple weeks ago. Now that he's learned it, I think that this might be a problem for Spacestation.
I think we have different variations of what learned means to Baskin.
That is very fair.
I think that any god could be learned by Baskin, but that's not necessarily to say that he's become a King Arthur expert. I don't think that this is... I think there's a reason Space Station leave that pick open, and it's because a lot of people tend to know that Baskin is not super favored towards this King Arthur.
We'll see how he does with it in this one as Discordia and Kernanos, the other two picks so far for Armada. Snoopy's been playing a ton of Kernanos so far. They're split, so no surprise there. But the Discordia pickup for Meerkat in the mid lane is one that we haven't seen a whole lot of other mid laners go towards, but I think it's pretty good, especially when you have a pick like King Arthur or Kernanos that when they get a lead feel nearly unstoppable. Giving them that Discordia passive means that they really truly are unstoppable.
I think that the Discordia kit in general should bode pretty well for Armada here because you got the Golden Apple cripple. That's going to be crucial, I think, for shutting down a lot of the Bacchus initiation if he chooses to flop in, or even the Achilles if he looks for a blink in. He's going to be crippled on that escape method. I also really like the Strife because Bacchus and Achilles, they're probably going to be trying to hover. One or the other is going to be hovering around the back line, and if that's the case, Strife could cause a lot of confusion in engagements.
Habois now the pick. That probably is going to be in the jungle here, right? I mean, you're not flexing King Arthur unless they're going to try and do something silly like King Arthur in support. Then Habois in ADC, you know, like that kind of stuff. I don't know. I don't anticipate that. I think it'll be Scream on the Habois in the jungle, which definitely can make a lot of plays for you. And again, another god that does very well with Discordia passive, but this Susano is one that can really disrupt someone like a Habois.
And you have to keep in mind, the Susano had a skin once upon a time ago because of masks.
That's
so
true.
It's really interesting, I think, to see him now going back to a classic signature god of his.
That LG Susano skin, something that he has done good work with. Isis being hovered, that would be Isis support, and they're gonna pick it. Now, the only thing I don't like about it here is that they're stacking so much magical power. I mean, you've got Discordia, Habois, Isis. That's a lot that makes that Isis do a lot less damage coincidentally because they need to build magic defense, but I think she has a good kit for playing support.
I think it's only awkward because there is a lot of escape for Space Station Gold to get away from these mages, and so the reinitiations could be problematic for Armada here, but it's Armada. What am I talking about?
It's Armada. Yeah, they've looked pretty good so far, so we'll give us their faith until they prove us wrong, I suppose. Game one coming at you right now. Space Station Gold looking to get themselves on the board up against Armada.
Thanks, Aggro. Thanks, Taco. It's Finch and Toli here on the call. Space Station up against Armada. And Toli, everything in my body is telling me that the better draft is over here with Space Station Gold, and that I'm favoring Space Station Gold. But I just can't do it, man. You just can't pick against Armada, no matter what.
I
Not
agree.
me, at least.
No, definitely not. They have yet to lose a single set, whereas Space Station Gold have yet to win a single set.
True.
So these two differences already should favor out Armada. But like you mentioned, the draft, more safe, more standard out of Space Station Gold. I like the fact that Baskin's playing Arthur, obviously. I don't think anyone has a problem with that. And Scream playing the Habois, very high bursty mage-style assassin that we don't get a chance to see very often. And I'm excited to see this happen because of how aggressive Scream is in nature. He's always looking for those highlight flashy plays, and Habois is certainly one to do it. But the problem is, he didn't go blink, so that play-making possibility is going to be slightly limited.
Somewhat, though, to give him some extra safety, maybe worried about Susano in particular, who can cause some problems for sometimes these junglers, and he's on a particularly unsafe one in this Habois. As the dual lane of Armada started at purple buff, I think they recognized they were just going to lose pressure for sure to a Freya Bacchus. So instead, they went right back to the buff, and now they're back at wave. And with Snoopy level 2, they can more comfortably stand here.
I definitely agree. I like the fact that there's going to be a Discordia support instead of the Isis support. You want to have better clear in that mid lane, so Wingus is important. Also, the jungle fights in terms of circle protection is good. You got the stun as well. Strife is all solid, fine and dandy, but in order to be at its most effectiveness, you have to be able to hit 2 targets to apply the madness effect. But if you're only looking to pick off one person that's out of position, I would rather have a Spirit Ball instead of a Strife.
That's a good point, and we just saw that Strife being put to good use, though this time it was a single target, but it set up for a nice trade there for Snoopy. Though Oswald on this Freya won't have too hard a time sustaining it up, so it shouldn't be too bad. As some of the concern was that they might be a little bit too magical heavy, as Baskin actually is brought quite low by this Achilles. He makes it out, though. But especially if they end up in the 3v3, which can happen a lot, which is jungle mid support, that truly is all magic. So maybe there is some validity to the fact that maybe they're too magical.
But the problem is, like, you're not building magical defense that early in the game.
That's true.
Necessarily. Like, maybe Matty Pocket's going to go into the Heartward Amulet potentially if that's something that he wants to do. That would negate quite a bit of damage from those magical damage dealers, actually, if you think about it. But I'm more worried about potentially Mask up against them. And he went Blink. He's looking for the play. So without beads, between the stun from Meerkat, the silence as well, that lasts long enough to allow Scream the knock-up and crushing wave combination.
That's a good point. Mask will have to be not only the initiator, but the initiation will have to be very clean, or else the punish potential will absolutely be there from Armada in this squad. That lockdown from them, even without a Guardian or an Assassin, they've got plenty of it between these three mages. So I think you're right, totally. Mask, I need to make sure that he's really picking his spots before he dives in.
And I think the way he's going to be playing this early game before level 12 when he has access to the beats is counter-engage. Look for wherever Scream is going and then look to play cleanup crew instead of being the main engager. You don't want to be there right as Scream and Geno Meerkat are grouped up together because you're not going to be having a good time as a beatless Susanoo at the end of the day, no matter who is playing that Susanoo. You could give that to adapting for all it matters. But it's more about how Mask can keep up with the rotations for Scream, keep up with the farm at the end of the day, and at least play cleanup group. Because I think the composition for both these teams has merits, but an all-out teamfight potential with the Giannis specifically, the chase-down potential should favor out Spacestation Gold.
Yeah, I was just thinking that. We're talking about how Mask had to maneuver these fights really carefully. Well, you have a Giannis on your team, and he can open up extra avenues for you to weave in and out of these fights. So even if he does end up using the blink aggressively in a bad spot, maybe if Amuel has his eyes open, he can catch him out and help him get back to safety.
Oswald rotating alongside Mask, going back into the lane. Geno is around the corner. I'm not in love with the fact that Matty Pocket was looking at his jungle the whole time while freezing the wave. That's kind of a telltale sign that you're waiting for some rotation to happen.
Well, beads coming out from Snoopy as Mask blinks in, and that's an easy first blood for Space Station Gold. I don't think Snoopy and Geno paid quite enough respect to the potential for that gank to come through, and they end up falling.
This is the problem with Kurnos in general, not having that CC immunity. So once you are without beads, you're just nowhere to go. The Horn Charge doesn't really provide you that much of a distance cover, as we're seeing Mask trade out with Z Gladiator Shield for both of them.
I couldn't quite keep that one going, but you're right. That is one part of the Kurnos that's not very strong, especially if he doesn't have the ultimate. Wild Hunt doesn't give him the CC immunity, but it is nice to drop at his feet. If you get polymorphed, you know, that buys him a little bit more time to walk away. So without those extra options there, Snoopy, there really wasn't much he could do as soon as Mask blinked right into his face.
And that blink paying off dividends already, giving the first blood bounty to the Susanoo to try to finish off some penetration item. Probably going to go for the Crusher to get more ability damage, unless he just wants to be able to look for as many ganks as possible.
Yeah.
He would be looking for that Jotun's Wrap to give him that 20% cooldown reduction, making it from a 90-second cooldown all the way down to about a 72-second instead.
Yeah, and Snoopy has the Salty Ward now, too, which you pick up right after you end up falling to a jungle gank that you weren't expecting. It's something that you definitely want to have, but it sure does feel salty.
So it's not a salty ward. I don't know where that term actually ever came from.
I just made it up just now.
Did you now?
Yeah.
The patented Finch salty word. Well, honestly, because Snoopy never backed yet,
he didn't have a chance.
Yeah, he didn't have a chance to drop a word, right? So he's like, all right, well, I'm trying to finish off Devil Gloves. I don't have exactly the amount of gold to finish it off. I'll just go ahead and make sure that it doesn't happen for round 2, because a Blink Relic is not the longest cooldown in the world, and there's plenty of time for Mask to go for round 2.
He certainly could be coming back, so it's one that makes a lot of sense to have, absolutely. Just had the opportunity to get it since you died. So it's unfortunate.
Sure.
Execute off the mark there from Ozzy, but he's got some help coming from Mast. A second gank as Baskin lands the stun, but I don't think he can handle the 2v1. Mast puts him down. That's 2-0-0 for the jungler for SSG.
The problem for Baskin rather, is the fact that he was tanking all those archers as well. If he clicked on his death recap, I'm sure he took about 250 plus damage alone from those archers. That was 2 waves worth. As an Arthur, when you're looking to trade out poke, you got to be looking for ways to clear the wave at the same time.
And now Scream is going to fall to Mask, a killing spree. And all of a sudden, all right, Space Station Gold looking good at the start of this game. And let me be clear, I don't mean to give that credit around. Mask is looking good at the start of this game on this Susanoo.
It's looking very clean for Mask and his team, especially
There
if
we
they
go.
can find a kill onto Snoopy. Good Intoxicate. The Valkyrie's discretion to finish it off.
Okay, well now I can say it's Spacestation Gold looking good, because that had nothing to do with Mask. A nice play between Matty Pocket and Oswald, as unfortunately the Strife off the mark. Amules through space and time comes through, and Oswald will certainly fall to the apple. Maddie and Amul don't have much they can do now.
A little too early on the Aegis. A great backpedal to avoid not only the Strife, but the Spirit Ball as well, but couldn't avoid the huge circle of protection or the apple. So that's going to be at least one kill for Armada, and the momentum now all favoring Space Station Gold, I would say, with these 3 kills going to Mask. I would definitely consider Mask more of a momentum-based player. If you shut him down early, he's almost just kind of mentally checked out of the game to a fault, but if you give him this kind of a lead, he's going to be making the highest of caliber plays throughout.
Mask is one of those players who sometimes feel like he's in the competition for the top, and sometimes feels like he could be the problem with the team. So when you're able to get him at this kind of level, it can be scary. Now Armada going to have to pay some more respect to it, I think. Get this map covered up with a few more wards. Make sure you know where Mast is, because all 3 of these kills came from members who were unsuspecting that he would even be there.
That's right. You can't forget the Season 3 days with him in Luminosity Gaming, with Barracuda, Jet Phillip making it to Worlds alongside Xenotronics and Scary D. So Mask has that experience in the SPL at the World stage, so he has the potential to certainly make a threat no matter what game he's playing. So finishing off the Crusher, it's not going to be the Yonin's Wrath. So that's really good considering that you're up against a Habwa jungle with a very low health pool.
That's right. Punish him with a little bit of extra tick damage as Mast is aggressing now onto Meerkat. Stun doesn't land, and that's another easy cleanup kill for Meerkat. Through space and time was there too, but unnecessary. Mast out of there, and now 4-0-0.
Doesn't matter what mage he's targeting, whether it's the Habwa or the Isis. Hell, he can even go to Geno sooner rather than later. He'll find a kill there. And speaking of Geno, a little out of position.
Good erratic behavior, gets him away from Matty Pocket, who tries to follow him with the stun. Now Scream can rotate in. Finally, a potential gank opportunity for the Habwa, but Giannis just walks through the wall, and there's nothing there.
I like the Intoxicate just to keep Scream at check there. Meanwhile, on the left side, Snoopy trying to get any kind of farm that he can, but Oswald being a lane bully, and that's important to do in the dual lane against somebody that's trying to build stacks and Devil Gloves, because that tower can strip away some of those stacks, making it more delayed to hit the power curve you're normally expecting to reach.
Totally, I don't want to get overexcited here, but Space Station Gold are looking good
They're
right
good,
now.
yeah.
And I think that it is partially that Mask is playing well, but overwhelmingly that there's not enough control here. And Mask can kind of just go wherever he wants and do whatever he wants, at least so far. Maybe once these mages get a little bit more online, they can build a little bit more hybrid, get some of those nice defensive items that are out there, breastplate, Celestial Legion helm, that kind of thing.
Well,
it won't be as bad, but right now, he can do whatever he wants.
I agree with you. But the thing is, the reason why Mask is allowed to get away with murder, quite literally, is because Armada can't group up yet. You're not expecting Baskin to rotate for at least another 3 to 4 levels once he gets a couple more items, gets that second relic, and then even if you do group up as Scream, Meerkat, and Geno, you're not in an advantage in terms of out-trading your opponents quite yet. You need the burst damage and looking for the pick opportunities, and without the wards to do so, you're just better off safely farming. But the problem is, Mask has taken advantage of all the little holes you don't have vision in, ganking in the left side onto Snoopy, killing out Baskin on the right side, the disrespect between the Arthur and the Achilles, and then even making a play in the mid lane. So it's all about recognizing where Mask is going and how Armada can adapt to it.
Well, to that credit, there's a lot more wards on the map now for Armada, so maybe they'll have a better idea. The only problem is, totally, that they've kind of missed their opportunity. He's level 12 now. Once Mass backs now, likely he'll pick up beads, and then even when they are able to land some control, it'll be that much less effective, at least that first time when he can cleanse it away. So, I don't know, maybe Armada missed one of their better windows to punish this Susanoo.
And normally whenever a jungler, or anyone for that matter, gets a little bit of a lead, they have almost plenty of things that they can go for in terms of item builds, but Mask wanted to play relatively safe after this 4-0 start, and he's going to be building into the Ankile, trying to get that hybrid magical defense and physical power.
That's a real good idea, as he's definitely going to be continuing to aggress onto these mages. Nice Strife onto 3, but I mean, it is a support Discordia. It doesn't mean a whole lot.
But it did steal away one of the Oracles,
That's
so
good, you're
neither team getting the vision, which is kind of important for Armada, because if Spacestation Gold had that vision, then they could play around this objective. But Armada having plenty of wards around that Gold Fury, they want to make sure that Snoopy is no longer getting ganked. With 2 deaths, 11 minutes into the game, it's been a little bit of a rough start for the Snoops Meister.
Yeah, he's still experience-wise ahead of Oswald, but you're right. He's been under some pressure so far from this Freya. As a red buff, looks like Amuel was able to secure it. Gino doesn't have an easy time stealing that away. But you were mentioning these stacks earlier on. I didn't realize you were talking about for the Habwa in the jungle, as there appears to be a fight around this purple buff.
Oh, Oswald going into the Valkyrie's discretion, trying to do what he can onto Snoopy. Matty Pocket getting the Intoxicate off. Gonna be into a little piggy right now, but he should have Belch momentarily.
Gino, though, won't have any peel up in time, and that means Matty can indeed clean up the return kill. Circle of Protection comes down, but Oswald with a great Aegis immutes it out, and the turnaround damage. But Scream blows him right on up. Oswald evaporated in all that water. Now how can Scream reposition after using the Crushing Wave?
Oh, Scream is gonna be dead, but he actually has the Purification bead still. However, Mask able to make a presence with the Blink Storm caught a play already, sitting at 5-0-1.
What a good game for Mask here so far, and that looked like an okay fight for Armada. But remember, they were the ones aggressing. They were at the purple buff of Space Station Gold, and I think they just got a bit outplayed in that one, totally, unfortunately for them. Maybe it was that they couldn't get enough from Meerkat in that fight. The Aegis was really good from Oswald, but Mast making it even worse for them now, 4 for 2 overall.
Wow, punishing Gino at 13 minutes, getting 6 kills for himself. He's been a part of 7 of his team's 9 kills, and this is what's allowing their success thus far. But I want to see them get objectives now. Not necessarily immediately after this pick onto Gino, but maybe in 2 minutes, once they finish off their 4th items, that's going to be a good power spike just to be able to continue being a bully.
Doug, if you could, would you show me those charts, my man? There we go. You knew what I wanted. About 3,000 experience. That's the more important one, I think, even than the gold at this level. There's a good disparity in the jungle, a little bit favoring Uzi as well over Baskin. That's certainly nice. So that's where maybe they can make a few plays, is around this experience gap that they have. As Scream rotates over, Uzi might not realize he's in some danger.
But he's definitely getting baited. Baskin has no fear. He actually used that Excalibur's Wrath right at the tower line. If he missed, he was going straight in.
Knockup comes through, but it doesn't seem to stop Mask at all. Typhoon catches out Baskin, and the Crushing Wave isn't enough. Uzi finds himself a double kill in the solo lane, and right now Armada kind of catching the hands.
Oh yeah, they are. This level 14
right.
Achilles is no joke to play with the Blackthorn's Hammer having plenty of health to play with, and now it's Snoopy in a lot of trouble, caught in a 1v3.
Drops the Wild Hunt, but it's entirely avoided. Great knockup from Matty Pocket with the Portal following up immediately, and Oswald gets one more kill. All of a sudden, Space Station Gold, they look a whole different team from what we've seen before.
This is when you got to pull out the Gold Fury immediately. You do have to worry about Meerkat's Circle of Protection, but with Baskin, Scream, and Snoopy all dead, just now coming off a revive, it's only an Isis that you got to worry about.
That is a Gold Fury for SSG over Armada, now with a true lead. 5,000 experience, 3,700 gold. And totally, is it really so much just this draft from Armada? Did they give away a lot of this early game?
It's a little bit of both. It is the draft because they're not that great early game at all, right? And that gives Mask plenty of opportunities to look for these plays, but it's also the fact that they're just not in position to counter engage, right? When you don't go blink and you're looking to farm as a Habwa jungle, you got to recognize where Mask is going and look for the counter engage. And thus far, they haven't been able to predict effectively where the Susanoo has been going.
Now, you highlighted this earlier, and it's really important that Armada haven't had a chance to group yet. So this early game where Mask can rotate around and get a bunch of picks, that's going to favor SSG. But once they do stack up, it feels like it's just a question of Armada not being too far behind, and their team fight shouldn't be bad.
Their team fights aren't going to be bad, but there's going to be a lot of burst damage in return now. This level 12 Bacchus is going to be doing quite a bit with this Void Stone already, synergizing a little bit with Amuel that has already 30% cooldown reduction between the Soul Gem even. And speaking of grouping up, I don't think Space Station Gold are done
That's good damage from Meerkat, you saw on the Oswald, but even better damage on the Snoopy, who catches just about everything, but Scream has a chance to potentially clean up, but that was way off the mark. He hits almost nothing there. Now a chance for the turnaround, but gets controlled, pulled back in, and Oswald blows him up. That's Scream and Snoopy on the bench, and Space Station up 5-3.
Scream really wanted to kill Amuel there, but the great portal to be able to escape. Meanwhile, Oswald was a prime target. He didn't have his ultimate. He was in the process of using that Aegis. If Scream was a little bit more patient, recognized Freya without an ultimate, just waited out that Aegis, that was a guaranteed kill on this Freya.
Well, he's got Book of Thoth into Book of the Dead, does Scream on this hub boss. That's nice to try and keep him alive in those engagements. We saw it come up for him towards the end, but it still wasn't enough. I mean, right now, Space Station Gold just look like the team that's playing this early game significantly better. Armada, for what it's worth, they look a little lost.
They're getting caught with their pants down. At that red buff, they were not prepared whatsoever. The ultimates could have been a little bit better from Scream. Meerkat trying to do what he can with the circle of protection. I think Armada just need to play more of their initiation game, because there's no reason for them to be more passive. They've been running this whole entire Smite minor league.
Yes.
They're stat-wise, like I think last time, before this game at least, from what I remember, 3 of their players are in the top 5 category for kills between Snoopy, Baskin, and Scream. But thus far, between the 3 of them, they have 1 kill in 17.5 minutes of play.
Yeah, that's just not going to be enough. I wonder if this team's even been down 6,000 gold yet in the minor league, playing up against the rest of this team. They've been just that dominant. So that's one more test for them, right? How well are they handling, you know, when things don't quite go the way they want? I mean, hopefully there's some calls in there to try and just hold on to what farm they can, stay relevant to that later game portion, and try and fight as a team. They can't afford to come apart at the seams.
Matty Pocket going to force Gino to use that cloud. Red buff does go the way of Space Station Gold. Matty Pocket still with his belly flop, respecting the potential engage out of Scream.
Scream does pushing forward, and now the counter collapse is on from Space Station. Forced right into the carpet and right into the ground. Mass is the one that puts him there. Matty Pocket in a little bit of trouble, but the rest of Armada are zoned out. Baskin keeps pushing in, but not much he can do alone, as Mass continues to chase out Snoopy underneath the tier 2.
Wow, good shell from Gino. Mass forced to use those beads just to prevent the root at the end of the day. These frontliners between Uzi and Mask are really penetrating, making Armada's life more difficult. Gold Fury not due to respawn for about another minute or so, so I think this is when you can start pushing this very low tier 1 tower.
Well, this is exactly how Space Station have to play this lead, though, right? Don't give Armada a chance to just calm down, fall back, and regroup. They've been playing aggressively into their jungle. Gino stepping forward, drops down the apple on the Amuel, and Baskin right here, maybe a chance to capitalize on the low health Giannis. But he's got to turn around. Meerkat needs some help. It's Uzi sitting right on top of him. A circle of protection heals him back up.
Buying a lot of time is that circle of protection. Enough time for Scream to even revive and start making his way downtown, but it's just not enough of a pressure for Space Station Gold. They're going to back off. Without the ultimate from Giannis or the mana pool to play with, it's going to be a clean disengage, forcing out all these cooldowns with the shell, the circle of protection. Those are 2 important defensive relics that makes it near impossible to do anything against Space Station Gold without those cooldowns.
And it will not be easy for them, as Scream now sits down 3 levels to Mass, level 19 as opposed to level 16 for the jungler for Armada, and that's just not where the Hobwall wants to be. No penetration online either, so it is going to be hard for him to do all the damage he'd like to, unless it's going directly towards one of these squishies. And with that Void Stone there, it's even less safe for him to engage in the first place. I mean, it's tough for Scream right now.
You're totally right. He does need penetration. And normally you want to be building Spear the Magus, but this late in the game, you got to just skip that and go straight for an Obsidian Shard. No matter how low those cooldowns are, you just need the pure penetration. And nowhere to be found is Armada. Space Station Gold get their second Fury of the game.
Primal goes their way, and Matty Pocket has to jump away from the red buff. I like the idea they're trying to zone them out. But Uzi wants to do a little bit more than zone. He's going in aggressively on the Achilles. Baskin is the front line for Armada, and a chance for a collapse. Stun comes out, but no more damage other than that. And Space Station start heading over towards the right side of the map.
Baskin's not done yet, though. He's trying to see what he can get, trying to flank on out there. Samuel going to get rooted by the Strife, taking a little bit of poke from the Unruly Magic. Space Station Gold doesn't have sustain, so Amuel can't afford to take any sort of poke, realistically. However, he does have Soul Gem, and it's very easy to stack as a Giannis, so I'll eat my words.
I just want to make sure I say I think this is very impressive.
Okay.
What we're seeing from Space Station, and just to prove it, Amio goes in and blows up Scream. Now in the 5v4, Space Station feel pretty comfortable trying to push in on this tier 2 tower. Maddie goes in first, of course, as the tank for the team, but this is good control coming out from Armada, but a better Typhoon.
Going to go up in the sky. The Valkyrie's discretion, I believe. Gino using that Aegis, so he's not going to get Fatal Strike, but Mask isn't done yet with some strikes of his own.
Diving underneath the Phoenix, because of course he can at this point. He's just that far ahead. Baskin's been caught by the Banish, and Oswald stands tall, puts him down. 18, staring down Baskin on the King. Tier 2 tower crumbles as well. It's Space Station Gold looking good.
Oh, they look very good, Finch. Could have probably went for a middle Phoenix if they really wanted to, but didn't really have the health pool or the mana pool to play with, so going to play very extra careful by going for this Fire Giants.
I kind of don't want to make too much hype about it. You remember the old cartoons where like they'll stand on midair for a moment until they look down and realize they're floating, and then they'll fall? It's like, don't say anything. Don't tell Space Station they're floating right now, or they might drop back down. This is... I got to make sure I stress how important this is. Space Station have not looked good at all. This is all split.
This is a true David versus Goliath matchup before seeing this game number 1.
Yeah.
And after seeing 22 minutes of play, the roles have been reversed. It seems that Space Station Gold are the Goliaths and Armada is the mere mortal David trying to battle their way back into this game.
Well, keep your eyes open if you're the rest of the North American SML. Armada absolutely can bleed. Of course, there is this small asterisk on here of this draft not being very traditional. Maybe it's as simple as that, just not working here, and it's hamstrung them too much. But credit where it's due. If they did come in with that weakness, Space Station exploited it.
Oh, absolutely. And a lot of it came down to Mask's pressure on every side of the map.
100%, yeah.
Everywhere, left and right. As soon as he level 5, he did a blink play onto Snoopy before Snoopy was level 5 for the Wild Hunt play, and that was a huge advantage for Oswald. And as a magical hunter, when you're not building stacks against a physical hunter that is, you're going to be able to be the lane bully. And that's kind of what Oswald continued to do, putting pressure onto Snoopy under that tier 1 tower. Not much really Snoopy could do instead of sit there and farm. And eventually, Mask continued that pressure on the right side of the map because Baskin and Uzi were kind of like hitting each other with pillows until finally Mask kind of came in with a brick.
That's right. He came over and gave a slight advantage to Uzi as well, and he's been using that very well. So the tier 2 tower in left now goes down, and any team fight that a King Arthur's not in is a good team fight, I feel like, for your team. So Space Station Gold happy to take this 1-for-1 trade.
Gina narrowly avoiding that whoop out of Oswald. That would have probably spelled lights out on a Discordia without any beats, support or otherwise, as Mask trying to see if he can poke a hole in the mid lane. Armada, though, looking for some sort of action. Not on the mark to pop the mic, guys.
So that's nice. Mash should be even safer next time he chooses to dive, as Uzi takes down that final tier 2 on the short lane. Now they should be able to have some minions push up to all 3 lanes and pick which Phoenix they want. I'd be surprised if they stay for this short lane Phoenix. It's really not as valuable as some of these others.
I definitely agree with you there, Finch. I think they're just trying to see if they can catch Armada slipping in these rotations, maybe bait out a speed buff there. It was up. They took it for themselves, but there's no reason for Armada to really leave their base. Knowing Fire Giant is down, Gold Fury is not due to respawn, Pyromancer was claimed earlier, Space Station Gold are just kind of wasting their own time, and Armada are not playing into Space Station's trap.
Yeah, I am a little surprised that they're going for this sort of trick play almost, instead of just doing, you know, what's worked for them so far, which is barreling right at Armada.
On the mini-map, you could see there was a ward right underneath the speed buff, and Armada had the beautiful intel. They realized, like, hey, Space Station Gold didn't go south. So unless they all backed in that jungle where we don't have vision, there's no reason for us to really push up, because they could just allow, or Armada could just allow the minions to get to their Phoenixes and clear safely from there, because there's no objectives that Armada can go for without truly getting punished by all 5 members.
I wonder what it is that had Space Station hesitating there. Maybe they didn't have the minions pushed up enough, or, I mean, they had relics up for everyone. They had Fire Giant.
Yeah.
That certainly was something where you'd think they'd have been favored, but they're going to play it safe, fall back, grab this Gold Fury. There is something to be said for playing it too safe, but I still don't think Space Station are there by any means.
I agree.
They're very much still out in front.
So here's the thing, Finch. They had Fire Giant, yes, but it wasn't the enhanced Fire Giant.
It wasn't.
And I think that's the play that Space Station Gold are really looking for. There's no world in Space Station's mind, or probably even Armada's mind, where Armada can test this next enhanced Fire Giant. Even if all 3 Phoenixes are up, Spacestation Gold want to have a fight in this jungle side where Armada doesn't have the wiggle room to retreat into safety, especially when you're dealing with a Giannis. For the disengage or the re-engage potential, Armada, they take one wrong step, going to get absolutely demolished.
And their composition does get a little less good, like we were saying earlier, in this siege situation for Space Station, and Armada's gets much better, I would say, in that siege. They have all these mages who can clear easily from range, and their control can kind of shine a little bit more underneath these Phoenixes. So Space Station Gold playing it safe is okay. I do want to see them pull the trigger, though, when they get this enhanced.
The thing that you got to note, though, against mages that are defending minion waves under their Phoenixes, by using these abilities at the minion wave, you won't necessarily have it for the team fight. So even if using Strife and / or a Spirit Ball is going to be your way of clearing a minion wave, Space Station Gold can rest easy knowing those two important CC abilities are not going to be there if Space Station want to force the issue.
All right, they're going to head over to this Enhanced Fire Giant. And Armada playing this impatiently. They've agreed to give it up. They're down, though, almost 20,000. That's so much of a disparity between these two. 17,000 gold and 20,000 experience. But I never thought I'd be saying that coming into this matchup, that Space Station were the team that was up this far. What an impressive performance of them so far. You still have to go close it out, though. You got to close that book. But, I mean, they're in about as good a spot as you can ask for to do it.
Speaking of books, the Vegas bookies over there are probably saying, man, we got to pay out a lot of money if Space Station Gold are winning this matchup. But I think that at the end of the day, these players on Space Station are truly capable of making plays at the end of the day. So you can't sleep on them, ever. And I think that's kind of what Armada did a little bit going into this matchup. I don't think they truly respected Space Station Gold.
And, again, it isn't Chapo that's on this team. I'm sure they talked about this a little bit on the desk, but it's Amuel that's in there in the middle lane for them, too. So, I mean, remember he played for United. They lost the game he was on, then they won without him. Hopefully Space Station does do the same thing. We know Chapo's good, but you don't want to hurt my man a little bit as Typhoon comes through from Mass, try and get things started. Up in the air, has a target, but Amuel immediately comes right back down with Beads and Aegis. Scream low, and Oswald happy to clean that up.
Right side Phoenix still standing. Oswald taking some of those shots. Needs to get out of dodge there as Uzi and Matty Pocket still zoning all the members away as Meerkat gets absolutely deleted.
This looks good for Space Station. I certainly don't want to jinx it here totally, but I mean, they could push in, though they haven't gotten this Phoenix just yet. They're all about half HP, and they're paying quite a bit of respect to Armada. But now that the minion wave was pushed in, they can grab it, and Armada can't stick around to defend.
I think this is going to be an end, Finch. There's no Scream or Meerkat. 5-on-3, a very healthy Uzi to tank the Titan.
Baskin, though, is still King Arthur, but he's getting chunked by Amuel. He can move in and try and slow things down. Snoopy already has to fall back to the fountain, but no one's really putting in any damage onto the actual Titan just yet. And Baskin has found a kill in what I could only classify as the 1v5 that time. Oswald goes down, so somehow Armada hold on, but Amuel punish the king.
Oh, and Amuel trying to survive using a portal at his feet, but he walks accidentally into Snoopy's basic attack.
Big Strife comes through, Unruly Magic there to follow up, so Maddie does get one, but Armada find one more. Somehow, some way, Armada hold on. And man, this has got to be what it was that kept Space Station so nervous, Totally, is you can never count out Armada.
Oh, wow. I thought for a second Uzi was for sure going to kill out Scream, using those beats there a little after the fact there unnecessarily, but still a little miscommunication, I think, as Space Station Gold had a Titan victory there, but they were just kind of getting a little too distracted by Baskin with all the control that he was providing. He does a lot of damage, a lot of AoE damage rather, so he was hitting all the members, and on top of that, he also has the knockup, right? You can't keep that out of the question.
No, you absolutely can't write that one off. So even though Armada defends the base and they don't lose the game, I think if you're Space Station, you still feel good that you got the right side Phoenix and the doors open. Maybe you could have got a little bit more, it could have been a little bit cleaner, but this is definitely still your game. Armada haven't taken it away just yet. Just regroup, refresh, and know that you can come back in again and make another push and still be the team that's out in front.
If they fail for a second time, though, that's when it's going to get really scary, because
that'll be nerve-wracking.
That was a 5-on-3 situation where they should have had it. There was no circle protection. It was basically Baskin being an absolute nuisance on the King Arthur. If they all focus the Titan, maybe they get the win there. Now, that Titan wasn't at its most vulnerable form, considering that the middle and left side Phoenix were still up and ready, but still, when you have Enhanced Fire Giant and you're dealing that much damage,
They're ganking over to the left-hand side here, totally. They want to try and catch him out. Scream gets good damage onto Amuel, and now all of a sudden Oswald has to run away. These isolated fractured fights are ones that could certainly be scary, but now Scream is stuck by himself. Big stun lands. Oswald just needs to come into range, but the knockup's there. Scream is certainly dead to rights here. It's a 1v5.
I think so. Even with Book of Dead, it's not enough to save his life. Trying to push out the wave for as long as he can, and
unnecessary.
with that 55-second death respawn timer, I think that Space Station Gold can squeeze another Phoenix.
That is an unnecessary fall that ends up taking. I understand you want to go push these minion waves up, but I mean, it's Giannis.
Yeah.
They can just be there all of a sudden.
See, the thing is, I believe that Scream was by his purple buff. And that's all it takes.
Yes.
That is all it takes against a Giannis player. Like, you're at your purple buff. Oh, we're at Fire Giant. We're going to get you.
Right.
We're
just
going
all
to
be
go
there.
all the way from Fire Giant to your purple buff and punish you. And if you're not going to blink backwards and use your Yellow River to get out of danger, that's going to be a clean pick. But with the 55 seconds, only getting their second Primal Fury of the game, I'm not too worried for Armada just giving up a Primal Fury. But if they give up the Fire Giant, that's when things can get a little sketchy.
Do you think they can afford to come fight this one and try and defend on the Fire Giant this time?
No, I don't think so. Not with right side Phoenix being vulnerable.
Right.
Maybe with Scream up and getting like a sick ultimate. Like onto Oswald and Amuel, I could see that being like the best case scenario for them.
That's the best one they could hope for at this point. And Space Station still have some power spikes left. A lot of boots still on the table for their team, so those can be sold for the elixirs of speed and give them even a 6th item as Fire Giant finally starts to be burned.
Sitting at about half health, this enhanced Fire Giant. Not going to be contested by Armada, wisely.
Probably
don't
good,
want
yeah.
to overextend and get punished by the Giannis yet again. We haven't really talked about the late game true potential for Armada, the comeback potential with Scream. Even though he was struggling most of the game and his slash line is not what one we're normally used to seeing from Scream being at 3 and 8, I still think he has the potential to turn this around considering he's a Habwa. All it takes is one good water sprout before the Aegis out of any one of these squishy characters into a crushing wave to just knock them out of the park.
Well, I think this next wave is still a fire minion wave, even though the Phoenix is respawned. So that might be one they can push with, though. The Unruly Magic and Spirit Ball clear from these mages is strong. Strife lands too, but like you said, when you use all your abilities on the wave, there's not always good follow-up.
That's true, but Space Station Gold not taking advantage of those couple abilities. Even the Yellow River was used, although it is a very short cooldown, about 7 seconds without 10 seconds, I believe, without CDR, so that could be one advantage. Now, regular minions, and that's go time for Uzi, apparently.
Uzi goes right towards Scream. Typhoon is charged. That knocks up 2 members, but Armada don't seem to deter. Basket kept going forward, and Gino's still healthy, but big damage comes out onto Scream and Snoopy. They both have to stay back now. Space Station still looking healthy.
I'm surprised Amuel didn't use his ultimate, knowing that Snoopy was about to disengage there. Still a good defensive measure for Armada that is heavily behind, 20,000 gold still.
But Uzi was able to back to base, teleport back in. Now he's full HP yet again. Baskin going to be the frontline presence, and he's putting out good damage and taking so little in return. Armada are turning it on here on the defense. Maddie's been stunned.
The stun into the Strife, into the circle of protection. Scream gets out. No,
That's
scratch
key.
that. Uzi with the execute.
That's good. They got 2 kills. It's 2 for 2 so far. And both of the teams have some low health bars, but Baskin yet again is the critical one. He's at the front and taking up plenty of damage. Armada having a hard time getting into this right side
They
Phoenix.
definitely are. The Strife into Unruly Magic. Not enough damage to really take out.
Whoa, Mask!
Oh, Mask? What?
He steps too far forward, gets knocked up and controlled. Now the Strife lands and Oswald's been deleted as well. All of a sudden, the mythos around this team is suddenly coming to life. Armada are not going to fall just yet, though. That is a nice juke. Gino unfortunately can't find the apple.
Oh, that middle tier 2 tower might go down with all those archers while Uzi is trying to retreat. Respawn timers from Space Station Gold are quite heavy, and their second Fire Giant attempt at the right side Phoenix has been unsuccessful. They weren't even able to actually even get it.
I'm worried now, totally.
I'm a little worried for Space Station now, too.
You're right. This tier 2 tower is close. It looks like it'll just barely make it. But things now are starting to seem scary. This composition, maybe it needed 35 minutes at 11 seconds to get online, but Armada's to the point where they have enough burst damage that Amuel, Mask, and Oswald can't afford to push in. Even Maddie's getting chunked a bit. even with Bulwark, Onis, and Voidstone.
I think Gino on this Discordia saved that team fight with a nice 3-man strife into a wild hunt out of Snoopy that actually forced out a premature ultimate out of Oswald that didn't really do any damage. The only person in range of his ultimate to take all that damage was Baskin. And a tanky Arthur, 35 minutes of the game, is just laughing at the Valkyrie's discretion. So I think there's a missed opportunity by Spacestation when they went in when it was regular minions instead of the fire minions that they had. They forced out a couple of abilities. They forced out the Strife. They forced out the Spirit Ball.
Right.
And Amuel didn't really use his ultimate offensively off of that.
Do you think that Oswald would benefit from an Ob Shard here instead of the Spear of the Magus? I get why he has it, but maybe he should be trying to burst through Oswald, or Baskin rather, a little bit more. Like you said, he wasn't hitting too hard.
Well, the thing is, Demonic Grip, once you stack it up, it's
nice.
Basically a knob shard at the end of the day, and you really want that attack speed a little bit more, so it makes sense as to why he doesn't have it. However, but with Spear of the Magus, yeah, I would rather see an Obsidian Shard instead of that item right there. That would be a little bit more effective. I like the fact that he has the whole ring, though, except the hastened ring.
Yeah, he's got a good... I think he's certainly doing good damage, but maybe he needs to do... I mean, he's doing plenty to Scream and Meerkat and Snoopy. I just wonder if maybe a little bit more needs to be done to Baskin, because they haven't brought him even close lately. Baskin looks very comfortable in these last few fights, though. Even with these last few wins, Armada don't seem comfortable yet pushing out beyond their Phoenixes. They might be willing to give up one more FG.
The thing is, the way Baskin has been able to weave through the action is why he's not taking that much damage.
That might be it too.
Everyone from Spacestation Gold is looking to dive the backline, and that gives Baskin the ability to do the same thing onto Amuel and Oswald. And without the lockdown potential from Matty Pocket's Belch into Belly Flop, Mask with the pull, Uzi with the stun, if you don't lock down that Arthur, he's going to do the same thing that the frontliners from Spacestation Gold are trying to do in the opposite end.
That's right. Aside from the Belch, they don't have the easiest applied CC in the world. They certainly still have some, but maybe Baskin is kind of just weaving his way through there and avoiding it as one more enhanced fire giant crashes into Earth. That'll belong to Space Station.
I like the fact that Armada are still patient, where they're like, nah, we're not going to go into the jungle and look for the defense. They don't need to. They've defended their Titan once. They defended the right side Phoenix a second time, and this third time is only going to get worse for Space Station Gold, knowing that Armada are basically now almost at their fully completed builds.
They're almost there. The boots are being sold for Space Station now, which is a spike Armada don't have. Like, Oswald doesn't have it anymore. He sold off his boots. You don't see any there for Matty either at this point. I don't think Ammo has them either. So this is one last wave where I think the gold lead still matters, and they can still come in with some advantage. The real big difference is the Fire Giant.
That's true. I mean, if you look at it, Space Station Gold, they basically sold off their boots to get the Elixir speed. So they're sitting at their fully final form.
Yes, this is it.
Like, the only way that they can get...
K-pots.
Yes, like, that's the only way that they can get stronger with those 3,000 gold potions, if they get both of them. Now, Armada are still looking to get their 6 items. Selling it is Baskin and Scream waiting for a little bit more gold. You're seeing Meerkat trying to finish off what I think might be an ethereal staff. I don't know if that's going to be a gem of isolation at the end of the day. You need more health. You need the ability to steal away some of the health. And that actually wouldn't be a bad idea on the opposite end, maybe for Amuel.
That might not be bad to look at as Space Station continue to play things slow. They're considering the Oni Fury, and this one is valuable late game, so if that's why they're sticking around to grab this, it certainly makes sense, and they want to push one of those even more buffed waves. But again, the more time Armada get, the scarier this gets. Totally 40 minutes now on the clock.
Yeah.
And, I mean, I don't know. This seemed all Space Station, and now I'm starting to get worried.
It really, really did. So I took note.
Man.
I took a mental note, actually, a very small mental note of what Mass did at the 39:05 mark. He had the 3K damage potion, and he popped it right as he left the fountain. And then he had to back around the red buff to go get a sentry ward as well. And so far, he's wasted about, this 40 seconds or so of like that. Like, yes, it does persist through death, but at the end of the day, like, every second matters, and you should really min-max your potions when you have this kind of a lead. And leaving your fountain, unless you're playing defense, you shouldn't pop your potion right there. Just wait for the action and then pop it.
Right, like right before you go into a fight or something like that, yeah.
The thing is, the one thing that you might want to worry about is you could be so focused on the team fight that you might forget to pop the potion, and that could be something that you could just improve upon by playing more games.
And you don't want to, pop it right before you literally dive. It might be a bit of a tell. There's plenty of room in there to do it, I think, without wasting as much time as is wasted here. So I get what you're saying, as they did grab that Oni Fury, and they'll have some extra ways to help them push. That should spread out Armada a bit, because you could lose a Phoenix to an Oni Fire Minion wave without a doubt, so they'll have to make sure they're there to defend.
And the funny thing is, just thinking about it, the fact that we're critiquing a 10-2 and 12 Susanoo with the smallest minute kind of detail is like, not to say that Mask is, playing bad by any means, but like, when you're playing a MOBA, min-maxing is kind of important. You don't want to lose 13 gold.
Right, exactly. Yes, over some minions in the solo lane, but I'm right there with you, Toli. This game has Mass name all over it, and this engage has Maddie's. He's diving right on in, but immediately eats the apple. But already Amuel and Uzi are the ones who are low. Scream gets the first kill this engagement. Baskin has Uzi up in the air, brings him right back down. Now he's low as well. Mask is tanking for him, but stun underneath the Phoenix. That's it. Uzi's down as well.
Oh my goodness. This time, Spacestation Gold didn't even kill anyone out of Armada. The positioning of their team fight is not one to be desired, Finch. It was between the left and the middle Phoenix.
My heart's going to break.
Oh, no, Finch.
It really is.
I'll pick it up for you.
This is rough, Toli. I appreciate it, but I mean, wow. This is in their hands. Space Station, you had this one.
It was in their hands.
I think was is exactly the right words. Yeah.
I did mention, like, if they fail the second time, that it would be pretty bad news bears. And after that second one on the right side, Phoenix, it's just been all downhill from here. Not to say, like, the power curve for Armada spiked up. I just think that it's the strategy from Space Station Gold. They can't figure out the proper way of executing because of how spread out some of these team fights are.
Nice.
But that's an important pick.
Yeah, I like that Armada, 42 minutes into a game they've been losing the entire time, are still gifting away kills. That's nice of them.
I don't blame Scream for that. That was a nice sneaky play for Space Station Gold. They were hiding and waiting for somebody to come in for that red buff. I think that's what it was.
Okay.
Without vision, I mean, like, yeah. They're expecting Space Station Gold to be back at their base, waiting to play defense in a 3v5 scenario, but expect the unexpected. Surprise, surprise. Mask and I think it was Uzi?
Yeah, he had one back there with him.
Somebody was next to Mask, and they found an easy pick onto a Habwa that had no relics, using it on the left side Phoenix.
And now Space Station Gold are the ones who have a man advantage all of a sudden, 5v4, and this should be much easier. Scream's damage was a real problem for them in that last push. He's one of the ones that grabbed a kill. So can Armada make the same kind of miraculous defense, this time down a person? They're running out of time on that, though.
They are.
Scream's back up in 10.
They are, but I mean, like, Matty Pocket was coming back from the fountain as well. Uzi blinking in, as is Mask. Snoopy dangerously low.
Through space and time doesn't quite connect, but they don't need it. Oswald finds one, Mask finds another. This is finally the fight that Armada needed. Totally. Basket's low on the left-hand side as well, but he's able to reposition. But now Scream's back up. Crushing wave sets up the double. Hopwa not letting you in.
And Gino surviving narrowly. A 2 for 2 under that middle Phoenix. Can't make anything happen. They're beating up the wall. They're making dents into the wall, but they just can't break it down.
Yeah, man. I don't think I don't know. I'm almost at a loss. It's like plot armor. You can't get in here and beat this Armada team. You're not allowed. It's against the rules, apparently.
It was a great engage, Finch. They killed
so
Snoopy
too.
and Meerkat, but the problem was Mask using all of his abilities didn't have it for the disengage, and also Amuel a little bit body blocking his teammate. I think Mask was staggered right behind the Giannis. There needs to be maybe a sacrificial lamb between those two players so you don't lose both, only one.
And I think that is the only part of this that I don't know if I'm fully on board with right now, is the Giannis has been great for them, but in these sieges, it's looked a bit lost for me. They're looking for the big damage off the through space and time as follow-up, but again, Amuel was off the mark with it that time, so, I mean, if they have a little bit more damage, if that pick is a little bit easier to come by, maybe Scream doesn't have a chance to come in and get a double.
That could be the case. We'll see how they adapt in this next siege. And approaching the 45-minute mark, I think that easily Armada can safely leave their base.
Right.
As long as they're together, all 5 members, because obviously Space Station Gold are not beneath setting up some traps looking for some picks.
Yeah, clearly they're willing to come out and give them a bit of a hard time as Uzi has to run away. Baskin gets stunned out as well on the left-hand side. And like you said, Armada are out in full force now, no longer giving away free fire giants. They've earned their way back into this game and back into relevancy as Baskin tries to catch out Matty Pocket.
Oh, a good little stun right on top of Snoopy. A lot of damage as Mask rips right through space and time, clips out Scream, Unstable Vortex to seal the deal.
Yeah, that's critical that they were able to find Scream and remove him from the fight. Now they need to do something to stop Baskin as Meerkat is isolated by Uzi. They got Baskin. Totally, this could finally be it. He was the one that was so stalwart as Meerkat gets an important kill. In fact, he's been pulled back in as well. Oswald finds the double and Space Station gold. They should finally be able to clean this up.
Without the raid boss Baskin being up, I think so as well. Amuel clearing out the wave. It is Gino on the Discordia without Golden Apple. I don't expect this defense to hold for much longer.
Me neither. Erratic behavior gets him away from the knock-up. Apple comes out as well, but immediately removed. Deicide. Amuel gets Gino, and in 46 minutes, finally, Space Station Gold take down Armada. They show they can bleed by grabbing game 1.
It was a rough ending, but it was a beautiful beginning. And I think Space Station Gold heavily deserved this win after all that. 46 minutes settles into the dust.
Man, that was kind of sweet, Tully. Sound like a sad marriage. A bad ending with a beautiful beginning. But that's exactly what we saw
Like
here.
the movie Up?
Yeah, like the movie Up. A good ending, and then the rest of the movie's subpar. Don't at me on that one, but a nice win for Space Station. I don't think we could hype it up enough that this win has happened. This is truly the best and the worst here, at least on paper, at least on record, playing up against each other, and Space Station were able to grab that win. Clearly, I'm at a loss for words at this point after 46 minutes of Space Station not being able to end it, so let's get this back over to the desk.
It's all right, Finch. We understand, you made a mistake. You said that up isn't that good, but it's just because you had a long game right after. I mean, luckily you didn't say anything silly like that the beginning of Finding Nemo is more sad than the beginning of Up, because that would be factually incorrect. What is factually correct is that Space Station actually won game 1. Taco, it took a long time for they get the job done.
I'm not letting you brush over this, by the way. I'm giving some context for the viewers back at home.
Okay,
These are all discussions, by the way, that I have actively been forced to endure.
Yeah, multiple times. Yeah, he's wrong. Like, what do you want me? Am I just supposed to? It's a social injustice for him to think that Finding Nemo is sadder than Up.
Finch and I have some great synergy right now. I'm not looking to interrupt with that.
Well, clearly you should, because
your guys' personal dilemmas does not involve me.
Dilemma implies that there's a chance that I'm wrong, which there is not. This game was just Mask doing Mask stuff. 13-3 for the Susano. He was the entire early game was centered around his pressure in every single lane. Mask had his best performance of the year so far, and it turns into a Space Station Gold victory, even against the best team in the league. And that's what that's the potential of Mask, is that he can basically win the game for you against the 5 best players in NA so far.
Not to take away from what anybody else was doing, though. I think that Uzi also had a pretty standout time on this Achilles. But again, a large part of that credited to Mask on those frequent rotations, kind of just beating Scream to the punch. But for a sub, Amuel didn't look half bad. In fact, I think he was kind of running things for a bit there on the honest mid.
Yeah, he played well, and basically everybody from Space Station did. I will say that Oswald, despite the really good scoreline, really, really low on the player damage charts. As Freya did very little in my estimation, but stayed alive in a lot of situations, and that's where Freya can do some things that other traditional hunters cannot. As for the Isis that we thought was going to go support but ended up in mid, it may as well have been support by damage numbers alone. Gino and Meerkat do about the same amount of damage. And as much as I don't like Discordia's support in comparison to Discordia mid and then Isis support, Gino played well on the pick.
I think that Armada certainly knew how to line up all of their abilities together to get the most efficient sequence of crowd control. That way Scream could kind of just run through. Same thing for Snoopy, or at least that was the idea. And it never really came to fruition until we arrived at the Phoenix sieging moments for Space Station Gold. Space Station just struggling, I think, to try and breach the base of Armada for so long because of the fact that they had that Freya. Oswald was spending so much time trying to prioritize his structure damage because Freya is definitely a little bit lacking there in comparison to a lot of the physical hunters or even a Kronos and Soul. And
Absolutely.
So because of that, all that burst damage from Armada finally had a chance to arise, and it wasn't like those jungle fights, because the jungle fight, I think, was very clearly one-sided, and that was evident by that final Fire Giant push, I think, even.
Absolutely, neither Snoopy nor Scream got a chance to get off their ultimates. Also, got to say that the mana build for Habwa in the jungle building Book of Thoth, I don't think he finished stacking it until almost 20 minutes in. That's usually not the look there in the jungle for Scream.